Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm doing my ADC tier list for patch 13.23, so if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. This is the third to last patch of the season. They are planning on doing a 13.24 and then a B patch to follow up with that, but for the most part, we're only going to see small changes, things which are mostly quality of life or like adjustments towards champions to make them more healthy going into the new season with the mythic removals and a bunch of map changes. So yeah, mostly small things. Let's talk about them. So to begin with, Draven is now going to have his ult come back to him when he dies. This is a relatively nice change. Doesn't do a huge amount, like his win rate will only really adjust by 0.1 to 0.5 at the maximum of this change, but past that, very small, just a nice quality of life change. He sits firmly in the A tier as a solid option. He's a good lane bully. He is one of the best at it. The likes of Kalista can struggle into certain mage matchups and certain meta matchups at the moment. The likes of MF and Ashe can prove difficult for her, whereas Draven can oftentimes just out DPS and then scale out into the late game quite nicely. The champion just works really well, has variations of builds. I know Bruiser Draven variations are definitely becoming a bit more popular, but you still have like the standard crit, the standard lethality variations. Triforce is still a very good option on him. So yeah, champ's in a pretty good spot, just not quite good enough to be pushed into the S tier, but then definitely holding a strong spot within the high A tier. Zigz is actually going to move all the way down to the A tier. He is no longer the premier mage in the bot lane. He took a decent hit this patch with losing 10 damage on his Q at all ranks. The W mana cost going up by 15 and the W cooldown going up earlier on into the game. All these changes have resulted in a decent power loss, which has put him down towards the A tier. The person replacing him is going to be Karthus, as Karthus is still a very strong AP bot laner. He was just not as good as Zigz for a decent while, but now Zigz has been hit a bit. Yeah, falls down into the A tier. Still a really good A tier option. There's a high chance as people kind of hop off the champion and it mostly goes back to being one Trixie play. He finds his way back in the S tier, but as he lost a decent amount of power this patch, I'm going to put him in the A tier. Other things which I want to talk about, so Vayne is definitely by far and away the best S plus tier option at the moment. She is in a incredible spot. She has a really strong build of the static into Triforce variation, but she can also go things like Storm Razor into Triforce. They do work quite well. I know some people like doing the for fun build, which is like the Storm Razor Essence Reaver Yomu's build, which still performs quite well. You do a huge amount of damage and it can be really fun to play if you're running it alongside Fleet and Ghost. You're just running around the map one-shotting people. That can be viable at certain points. Alongside this though, yeah, the durability of Triforce combined with the wave clear of static provides her with two of the things which she didn't really have within her kit, which is multi-target and durability. Having these on a champion which is already really mobile and does huge single target DPS is really good, and yeah, she finds herself in a very strong spot at the moment. Surprised she's not being nerfed in 13.24, but they are only really doing buffs and like nerfing down the really high end things like Briar and Ivan, who are very much performing quite well at the moment. Other things is Tank Varus is definitely popping up a lot more. This is the Bork Radiant Virtue variation. You can also go like Wits Radiant Virtue. It's kind of like pick depending on the game. It works within top lane, within mid lane, within ADC. It's not as popular in the ADC role, but it is definitely a variation you can go. Varus himself is not in a bad spot at the moment, just not good enough to really creep into the A tier. If he does see a lot more play with some of his better builds, then there is a way he will find himself back in the A tier. But for the moment, as lots of people end up trolling the build variations and don't tend to go the right things in the right games, he just stays in the B tier, but he is definitely a good option. Definitely kind of sits above the rest of the B tier for the moment. Other champs which we'll talk about, so Xayah is okay. So part of me wants to drop Xayah down towards the B tier. She's kind of bait within mid-low elo at the moment. She's still a very good high elo pick. She has really strong self pill, really good root and single target damage. She has good AoE damage as well, but she doesn't perform to the same level as a lot of the other marksmen. She does struggle in laning phase against champions which either outrange her or can just out DPS her. But yeah, she has self pill, strong DPS later on into the game. It's just those aren't usually enough to kind of put the champion into the A tier, S tier kind of zones, as you kind of need a bunch of everything to really make it work. For example, Jhin, I'm not a huge Jhin fan, but at least he has really good setup, he has decent damage. The big downside to towards Jhin is the fact that he is limited by his reload and can't output as much DPS as most marksmen. But if you play Jhin correctly and you're playing him as like a setup marksman and not playing him on like a really high econ build, then he can, not playing him on a very expensive build, then yes, he can work quite well and be good in certain situations. Long range, good setup, good CC. But yeah, that's what we want to talk about. Next patch, I don't believe we're seeing a huge amount of shifts towards the ADC role, other than Lucian is getting 3 seconds shaved off his E, which is nice, but not really going to push him out to B tier. And Zeri is actually receiving some decent changes. She's getting a lot more AD growth and a bit of W damage, I believe, which might put her up towards the B tier, but she's definitely the lowest performing marksman at the moment, so there's a high chance she does stay within the C tier. The likes of Senna, very much coming close to being knocked off the ADC tier list, as she just doesn't really see the play anymore after the nerfs, but she can still work if you are looking to pick her up. I just recommend the support role and going something like the Yomu's variation where she is quite strong. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.